Welcome to GameSpot presents the Hotspot. It is Friday, December 9th. We have a very special show for you guys. Finally, we are doing our live Spoilercast for Skyrim. Elder Scrolls Skyrim. It came out, 5 weeks ago? But I have a wonderful cast for you guys to talk about it with all of you guys. So on my right, Kurtis Seid, how are you doing?
Hi there, I'm doing fine, everybody.
Great. I'm fine, everybody.
Just fine.
John Davison, how are you doing?
Hello.
And Kevin VanOrd, the reviewer of this game.
Hi.
So, we are going to talk about this game in depth for hopefully an hour. I don't know. Until we run out of things to say. Well, we probably won't ever run out of things to say. Still tomorrow, right.
Or maybe
next week.
Or maybe a week. I don't know. But we're going to start with story, because this is an RPG, and RPGs are supposed to have great stories, right? Right?
I guess, yeah.
No? It's not really, this isn't really a story game, though, right? I mean, it's more about, like, the setting that makes this game.
Well, in a sense,
that
that
fair?
is story, though, right? When it comes to a game like this, where you are is almost as important as what you do and who tells you what to do.
Right.
Right. So, I mean, it's all about the place, and it's all about it's more of an adventure than it is a story to be told. You know, this is, your chance to be a hero and your chance to explore and do things the way you will. I think the story is great.
Really?
I think. Okay. Well.
Because I completely disagree.
To move back a bit, I think that the stories this game tells are great. I don't necessarily mean the main quest, but I mean taken in as a whole. When you consider all the smaller stories that this game tells, I think they all come together to make for a very vast, epic, and quite wonderful story.
I mean, what I really like is when the stories merge together in certain places, like if you've joined one side of an army or not, that might influence the main quest line. Or when you're in the Dark Brotherhood, you might have a reason to go visit the Thieves Guild. But on the flip side, I don't like it when it doesn't address those issues. Like, it might not recognize that, hey, I'm actually a werewolf. I don't need this certain thing you're talking about because I already have that.
Like the cannibals that you like to go on about.
Yes, the cannibals.
Because if you're a werewolf, you can eat anybody at any time.
I'm already eating people. You don't need to teach me how to eat people. I know it. It's in my blood already.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, the thing about story for me is I have a very hard time seeing the forest through the trees. I get caught up in these boring dialogue moments where it's like I hear this guy talking at me and I recognize that, okay, you're setting up this quest line, and I don't know, I guess I'm just not finding a hook to a lot of the storylines.
Also, the sort of big bad is sort of not that much of a big bad. I mean, like, it starts to build towards this, like for the first few hours, we actually sat around, I was talking to Justin, and we were like, well, what is the main story? Like, because it doesn't really get going, and then it starts, Alduin is back, and you're supposed to fear Alduin, who's this dragon that you beat up once and he disappears. And then, I mean, for me, when I got to the final battle in the game, I didn't actually realize that was the final battle in the game, because there was this sort of like, you go to Sovngarde and everyone has an even stronger Nordic accent there. Yeah. And you go and he shows up after you've
shouted away all the
blown away some cobwebs, and four of you kind of pale out, and he sort of evaporates, and then they're just sort of like, oh yeah, well done, nice job.
Head back to Skyrim now.
Yeah, you're good. Those three dudes were doing more than I was, it seemed like, most of the time, because I was just shouting Dragon Rend, bringing Alduin down, and then had the rest of them wail on it for me.
So there wasn't that sense of like this sort of all-pervasive evil that was binding everything together. It was just, there's some bad dude and he flies around over there somewhere if you want to go get him.
No, yeah, that's very true. And the thing about that fight too is I was watching footage of when Kurtis beat this. He it shows him beating the dragon, he absorbs it, then he kind of just like, okay, where do I go? Okay, now I'm going to wander over back to how I get back to Skyrim after talking to that guy. And then as soon as he pops out, there's just like a couple bandits that start wailing on him. And it's like,
also I love that you go back to Dragon's Reach, and there's one of the NPC guards on the bridge. He's like, oh, well done for ridding us of Alduin. Yeah. And then you go in, and the Jarl's just sat there on his chair like this, going. And then the other guy is like, the Jarl's real busy, you shouldn't disturb him. Right. And it's like, wait, I just killed the thing that is you're all terrified of, and the game is just yeah, well, thank you. Well,
it's really interesting too, because it's like if you look at any kind of like a literary short story or a novel or something, they always tell you like once you hit the climax, you get out as soon as possible. And I think this game is a very good example of that, because after you hit that climax, you kill Alduin, there's like 100 more hours,
Oh, yeah.
or however many more hours you can sink into this game.
Well, it's kind of more like it's a world you're living in, not
Right.
like a condensed story. So there's so much more that you want to explore, and now that you have the power to actually summon Odahviing, your personal dragon, it's like almost enhanced.
Right.
Yeah.
So once I had that summon, I took it to all of the war raids that I went on. So when I was with the Stormcloaks and I was fighting the Legion, I just bring Odahviing down there, or one of my summons from Sovngarde, and they're taking care of a lot of the stuff for me, and I can just concentrate on what I want to do.
Well, and it's interesting too. You were talking about the dialogue, right? You're talking about like you have to go through endless trees of dialogue and that kind of thing. I don't necessarily mind like lots of dialogue. I think one thing that hopefully Bethesda will think about for next time is, and this is the case for a lot of games that are writing heavy. People talk the way people write in a lot of these games, not the way people actually talk.
Yeah.
And so I think it would be helpful if people spoke in really natural ways. For example, right now I'm still in the process of going through all these Dark Brotherhood quests, and you get to a point where the Night Mother herself is telling you what to do and sending you off, and she's creepy and weird, and it's interesting because there are moments that really stood out for me, like when you get into the coffin several times with her, which is really freaky and weird, and one of those moments that you remember and think about. But then when she talks and she's giving you the quest, she's like, I want you to go to kill...
She delivers wood.
Blah,
It's
blah,
like
blah,
it's-
blah,
yeah.
blah, in her creepy voice. But it's still like, okay, this is very much, Bethesda wants to say, hey, this is what you're going to go do, and now you're going to go do it, and just spells it right out. But because it's just being told as if it's just a quest, it doesn't sound like what a creepy Night Mother should be
Right.
telling you. She should be telling you in a creepy Night Mother way, not in the, hey, I'm a writer and I'm sitting at my desk and I wrote this dialogue way.
I mean, and yeah, if you compare that to something like, say, Mass Effect, where you've got, that guy, I'm blanking on his name right now, who's like up in his room, and he's like smoking a cigarette, the head of
The Elusive Man.
Oh, the Elusive Man.
Man.
Right.
Yeah.
So he's up there, and it's all very cinematic, and it really puts you into that story experience. But, I mean, this game obviously tells its stories much, much differently. It never takes you out of the experience.
Yeah.
Which I guess is nice, because, you're always in the world, as it were.
Well, and to me, I mean, I think one thing this game has in common of very few things actually, say with Dark Souls, is that this is still your invitation. As much dialogue as there is, and as many attempts at real storytelling as there is, it's still about the story you yourself create. And I think the game does such a great job of giving you a variety of ways of doing that, that you get really sucked in, especially because, I don't know, like I think of the stories I'm telling. So, for example, you get a chance in one of the quests to either kill, flesh-eating group of people, or
Cannibals.
Cannibals. Right, that's the word I was trying to look for. You either get a chance to kill like this cannibal, or you can talk to her and kind of take that further, and then you become a cannibal yourself. Every time you put this ring on,
Aspire
you
to be a
can
cannibal.
feast on human flesh. And so part of my story is very different from what's part of other people's story. Like now, I feel a little freaky because I'm going around and feasting on human flesh, and people are saying things to me like, "Oh my God, what's that on your breath?" They notice.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to me that now this is part of my story. Like I've created this adventure for myself where I'm like a flesh-eating, weirdo that talks to the Night Mother, and I'm the listener, and she sends me off to kill people. And that's a lot different from, say, what John's doing, which I haven't followed through with the companion quests.
Right.
And so you get to be a werewolf and do all this other stuff.
Yeah.
And so part of your story is you're a werewolf. But that's not my story. I have a very different story to tell.
See, it's interesting, because it's not your story yet. It's like, at some point you will be that guy too, if you keep playing this game.
Right. But there are some like hardline inflection points in the game. So there's, I can't remember his name. What's the dragon who was sort of essentially defected Parthenax?
Parthenax,
yeah.
So you sort of escalate your way through the story, and it is starting to gain some momentum, and you've met the Blades, and there's this definite sense of sort of purpose that's coming, and they send you to the throat of the world, and the dragon is on top, and he's like this old wise dragon, and he's sort of giving you a history lesson and everything that happened, and basically opening up a whole sort of branch of story. And then out of nowhere, after the sort of meeting of the clans or whatever, around the table, they're like, you need to go kill Parthenax, or we're not going to help you anymore. You're like, what?
Yeah,
do that.
I can see that.
And I actually felt, there were a few characters in the game that I started to feel a bond with. I mean, in a completely irrational way, because the game hadn't earned it from me.
Yeah.
Like, it hadn't earned the bond I have with Lydia. I mean, she has 6 likes, right?
Lydia
They're
is
all hostile, pretty much.
Yeah,
She's
and
snarky as hell.
and she's kind of snarky.
I want to get back to Lydia.
We'll
You
come
can
back to
finish
Lydia
your
later.
point.
The Parthenax, right? He's this old sort of like, I mean, and it has nothing to do, but I have this sort of like, Sean Connery kind of old wise guy imparting knowledge on the mountain. And they're like, go kill him, or we're not going to help you. And actually, it was a point where I chose to not kill him, and it didn't matter. And it was one of the few sort of things where the game was trying to imply this is a moment that you can't get past. But it actually, when you can go off and you can go to Sovngarde having not done Parthenax, and actually, he has this like lengthy piece of exposition when you get back from Sovngarde that I assume you don't have if you killed him.
If you kill him, just Odoving takes over instead.
Oh, he does instead?
He gives the same speech pretty much.
Okay, so there's this whole sort of like, this is, and all the dragons are sort of getting up and flying off and disappearing, but he's there and he's kind of telling the end of the story. What actually happened to me, and we can talk about bugs in a minute, is that I was standing on the very top of the mountain when Parthenax started talking and slipped off.
Oh, nice.
So I was very slowly sliding down the mountain, unable to do anything because I was locked in conversation mode. So and it was just very, very gradual, and he's still
That's the most
talking,
dramatic
and I
slow
can't-
fall
I
you
can't-
will
it's like,
ever experience.
It's supposed to be a moving moment where you're making some eye contact with the dragon, and I can't see it. I'm just looking down the mountain, wondering at which point it's going to just like topple me off completely.
You're like, as soon as the conversation breaks, you're going to plummet to your death.
Here's the question I have, because I mean, if we're going to bring up bugs, maybe we can. Maybe
You
we
wanna
can
start now?
Yeah, maybe we can just start.
Because this game is dominated by...
I don't want to. I don't want this to become a let's bash Skyrim because it's full of bugs. But I think it is interesting to talk about this. The bugs have almost taken on a new character. You go to YouTube and you see all these clips of things. And these things are part of the entertainment. They've become part of the entertainment value of Skyrim.
Hilarious all the time.
And I'm not talking about right now. I'm stuck. I cannot continue this quest line. It's the whole quest line where you have to choose between Stormcloaks and Imperials. And I'm sided with the Stormcloaks, but I can no longer continue my quest line because I forget his name off the top of my head, but he refuses to talk to me now. And so now some people said, go back and load a save game. I'm not going to go back for 20 hours before and load a save game.
That's crazy.
I'm just not going to, because I've continued on way past that at this point. So I'm hoping it'll be fixed in a patch. But I think a lot of this stuff has taken on its own kind of life when you talk about the bugs. I mean, I noted in the review walking up and suddenly you see a mammoth fall from the sky. And this is interesting because one time I ended up losing the battle that I was going into. But the first time I see the mammoth fall from the sky and land on top of another mammoth. And so you've got one mammoth walking with the other mammoth on top of it. But both of them sort of, they don't know that each other exists.
Yeah.
They're totally ambivalent about it. And then one just sort of slides off. And then I lost the fight against a giant because those giants are sons of bitches. But then, I reload the save game, and the same thing happens. Mammoth spawns in the sky, but then falls to his death.
I think we have footage of that, guys. Can you cue it up?
Do we really?
I think so. I don't know. Keep going, but I think we do.
But I mean, that stuff, that doesn't bother you so much as it's sort of entertaining. Now, I would argue that, what Skyrim wants to do is it wants to involve you in its world, and it wants to keep you from being pushed out of it, and that kind of thing reminds you that you're a dude on a couch playing a game, right? But by the same token, that's how the community around the game has evolved, is around those moments and around thrusting Lydia off of a cliff with Fussroda and all this stuff, and the repeated dialogue, which would normally be an annoyance. Now you've got a meme, with the the arrow in the knee thing, and so this stuff suddenly becomes part of the.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about the bugs,
you.
largely, and the reason why I feel like they're more endearing than anything else, is very rarely will you find one that breaks the game. Like the one that you were talking about where you'd have to reload a save file that's 20 hours behind. I feel like that's the very, very rare exception.
It doesn't happen.
Largely, it's just oh my god, there's like a person floating 500 feet in the air, what the heck is going on?
And then it's just the annoyance is like getting stuck in the geometry. That
Yeah,
happens
yeah,
to me
yeah.
more often
Yeah.
than not. But I mean, very often you could go back to an autosave that was 5-10 minutes prior.
Or just
Right.
quick travel if you're
Yeah.
outside.
Or quick travel,
that's
right.
Yeah.
There are ways around them. Do we want to go through our favorite bugs?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah? You want to start?
Well, certainly my least favorite is the getting stuck in the geometry. I think my least favorite stuff has to do with AI behavior, or maybe my favorite stuff, depending on how you look at it. And there's some hysterical YouTube clips you can go and look at. But like one of my favorites is the Dwarven City. Yeah, it's the Dwemer City, but now I forget the name of the place. Not Morthal, it's the other one. But anyway, sorry guys for forgetting.
Way too many proper names.
People in the comments telling me whatever the name is. Markarth. Thank you. But there's a place where you go in and you've got these. I mean, in several places you've got all these traps with doors that swing and injure you and things like that. And the AI in this game is absolutely stupid.
Yep.
All right, let's just say it right out. The AI is stupid and awful in the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. So you've got these situations where Lydia or whoever your companion is gets stuck in these endless loops of being, swung open by doors. And there's this great YouTube video of Lydia just getting stuck in this endless thing. And Lydia can die after a while. She'll lose health and she'll
bludgeon to death.
Down
well,
and
she'll
then
take a knee
back.
if you don't. Only you can kill her, right?
No.
Anybody,
she can die.
Yeah,
anyone else
that's a
can
myth.
kill her. It's just that the other AIs are programmed not to hit her.
Right.
Yeah.
But if they're casting like a spell or something, they can definitely coup de
She'd
grace.
walk on the switch every time. So like, in this
She
thing,
doesn't care.
Yeah.
It's a gate with spikes on it and a big switch in the middle of the ground. And she gets up, runs on the switch, gets banged in the face against the wall, and just keeps going.
Yeah.
She's the honey badger of the game. She doesn't give a but they're in Markarth, like I think that's the name of the city, right? Okay, so there's this one where you've got this this hallway or whatever, like this incline, where you've got these rotating spiky traps that go up and down. For God's sake, Bethesda, why is that even there? Because Lydia cannot possibly navigate that kind of thing. And so it's absolutely ridiculous. And there are those moments. Those are probably but it's funny, right?
Yeah.
Because she's stuck on this thing, she goes down, she gets up, and she's being knocked around everywhere, and it's like it's pure Schadenfreude in a way, because she's got an attitude.
Right.
And so you just kind of see her getting knocked around, and you're like,
I'm sworn to carry your burden.
You're also sworn to get hit.
But I care for her. If she dies,
I reload.
I always have to reload because
me
I
too.
can't go without Lydia. Yes, I can go and get other companions, but Lydia's my
Did you use other
gal.
companions? I find I have this weird sense of feeling like I'm cheating on her or something.
I know,
Yeah,
right?
totally.
So I went in. There was a bar in one of the
More
in the
so than
towns.
cheating on your wife, I'm sure. With Lydia.
Well,
Maybe a little
That's
harsh.
okay.
But there's this woman in this one bar, this real sort of tough Nord chick who wants to engage you in a fist fight. And I'd been sort of avoiding it, and there was one I was just sort of goofing around, and I actually beat the woman down completely. And then every time you go in there, she's really pushy. You need to drop, that one that's following you. You need to take me with you. And it was she's showing some maybe I need to take her on a combat thing, but I couldn't do it. And because Lydia, now I gave her that big dwarven axe thing that you get, and she kicks butt now. I mean,
totally
she's
kicks
awesome.
ass.
She goes in and she just wails on stuff, and I can't leave her behind.
I mean, I almost feel like she's too good in this way, because I play through this game as a caster, and I find largely going back to her poor AI, as a caster, I stand back, and I find invariably she's right between me and the enemy I'm trying to shoot. So there's a lot of me strafing around, trying to get an angle, a lot of her just kicking the crap out of stuff, and then by the time I get one or two shots in, it's dead.
She got very protective in the Mage Academy for me. You know when you're doing that thing where the guy is asking you to learn the wards?
Yep.
She would not get from between me and the teacher.
Yeah.
I ended up having to go over to her and instruct her to go somewhere.
Lydia, sit. Sit.
she loves doorways, doesn't she?
Yeah.
She will just get in a doorway.
Oh
and
my
hang
God, I
out.
can't-
She doesn't want you to leave.
I can't count the times I just yelled, Lydia, get your head out of your ass. What the hell? Get out of the doorway.
I mean, that's why for me, I pretty much dumped her almost immediately.
Oh, really?
All of my other companions are all ranged companions.
Oh.
I stick with Pfeifendale or Sven, one of the ones you get into Riverwood almost immediately. Kept them for a while, and then eventually I got the mercenary in Whiterun. I think her
the
name's
one up in the okay.
Janesa, who cost 500 gold each time to get her, and one of the reasons I actually ended up marrying her is because I didn't want to pay each time over and over
That's
again.
very practical of you.
You didn't want to pay for it, so you just married her.
Yeah, exactly.
That's fair.
Because I was
fair.
doing the companions at the same time, and each time the companions would wiggle their way in, and Janessa would leave, and when I would come back to her, she would like another 500.
That was lame. Can I tell you the first time that happened, because I had gone out of my, I didn't come across Sven the first time I played. It's like he's the dude that you can get way early on that will come along with you. So I didn't get him. So I had been traveling around before I had even continued the main story to get Lydia or done the companion stuff, and I ran across it's not Sven, but it's something very similar, Svensgar, whatever his name is. He's in the on the second floor of one of the inns. And so I hired him to come along with me. And then I went and did the companion quests. And you're like, I have to come along with you for this thing. It's like, goodbye, dude. And then, of course, then he walks all the way back to his home spot. And then I have to spend all that money again. And at that point in the game, it's not like I was rolling in dough. Now I have more gold than I ever know what I would ever do with. But, but at that stage, it's surely maybe somebody could have thought this one through a little bit better.
Yeah, money is actually kind of interesting in this game because at the very beginning of the game, I feel like I'm completely always cash-strapped. I actually just stole the house in Whiterun. Did you? There's
You stole it?
Yeah, I stole it.
legitimately bought it. What's wrong with you, Tom?
No, I only had 5,000 gold, and I realized I went
It
online.
costs 1,000.
What's that?
It only costs 1,000.
There's one in Whiterun?
Yeah.
The one that you buy from the
Bluestone.
first Jarl?
It's
Isn't it
only
like
a couple of
it- oh,
thousand.
it's a couple thousand, maybe.
I
It's
literally
5?
went. It's 5,000. I swear to God. So
Actually,
there's
it's the horse there that's 1,000, right?
Something
yeah,
like
the
that.
horse is 1,000. So anyway, I go in, I talk to the guy, and there's this bug online that you can find a YouTube video of. And apparently, if you talk to him and then hit the B button before the transaction takes place, and you put your money in a wardrobe or something, it'll just be like, here's the house, and then you can go into the wardrobe and take your 5,000 gold. I found that very funny.
Nice.
But anyway, so as far as money goes, I find at the beginning I'm hoarding money. I mean, as you are supposed to, and I feel like most games. But then after a while, there's just nothing to do with the money. Do you guys find that?
I mean,
similar
I
experience?
got money really quickly because I was doing the trick like a bunch of people were doing, is making iron daggers over and over and enchanting them and selling them.
You have an interesting way of getting through most of the things in the game.
I've been pretty much cheating the
You have
entire
been
way
cheating
through.
your entire way through this.
I mean-
I have seen you beating the crap out of Shadowmare to level up a skill.
Yeah, I got my two-handed sword, found my invincible horse, and just wailed on it and just got a bunch of levels over and over.
Man, that is Final Fantasy II right there.
Pretty much,
So
yeah.
you can level up your sneak ability with the Greybeards, right? 'Cause
Yeah, yeah.
they're all invincible. So
Yeah.
if you sneak up on the Greybeards while they're chanting or whatever, you can just start wailing on them, and you level up your sneak skill really heavily.
Man.
Yeah, I mean, I was even casting on dead bodies.
For like an hour and a half.
Yeah, we have like
You
footage
got
somewhere.
paid several tens of dollars. I saw you.
to conjure on a dead thief and gift it.
That was weird.
Over and over?
I
Yeah,
didn't want to
the
say
same
anything,
thief?
but it was a
Yeah.
little weird.
You
Yeah,
just
so-
use Soul Trap and it registers on a dead body.
So there are these ways, I guess,
right.
what I'm getting at, to level your skill tree. And the skill tree in this game is different than Oblivion, where you start at fairly low level, and then you have to use these skills to level up. Did you guys like that skill tree?
Yeah, for
Yeah.
the most
I
part.
liked it. I liked it because the skills and the perks were separate. You could still get strong in like one-handed, shields, whatever, and the perks were just like a bonus. It's the icing on the cake if you want something special, but you don't actually need it.
I could have used the perks scaling a little quicker than they did.
Yeah.
Like,
I get that.
I really wanted to sort of double down on destruction magic, and it took a while to unlock that second tier. Like getting up to the,
The
once you're in
50, I
the
think?
Yeah,
once
something
you're
like
north
50.
of 50, it slows down quite a bit.
Unless you're conjuring on
Yeah.
Shadowmare for
Yeah.
an hour at a time.
I think it's like a really interesting combination because you've got on one hand games that give you complete control over everything and how you level, and it doesn't care how you play. But then you've got something like the original Dungeon Siege, if you remember, where essentially the only way you leveled was exactly how you played. So I think this is a really good mix of like the game paying attention to what you do, but also you getting to choose how you sort of tweak that stuff. I just think it works, and it works really well.
Well, coming back to the whole Iron Dagger thing I did,
Yeah.
I mean, I got huge levels out of that, and it was like, I'm not even going to spend perks in my smithing or enchanting.
Oh, really?
I'm going to use all these perks I got up by smithing and use it on my one-handed combat and my spellcasting.
But if you don't spend them in smithing, then you can't make the best armor, isn't that right?
Yeah, but I didn't need to make the best armor because I got those through questing.
Oh, okay.
I use my like Daedric armors that I get from all the Daedric princes, and I use like the Dragon Priest mass and all those are, well, they're pretty good. They're probably not the best things out there, but getting them for free and not having to waste perks is a good deal.
So the question then becomes, like, if they don't actually have a real value, why are they in there?
You mean the value of the actual armors or the perks themselves?
Like if the game is easy enough that you don't really feel like you need to go out and...
So like if I want to make, say, dragon bone armor or whatever, you know, if I can find better armor out there, why am I going to spend all this time leveling up this blacksmithing skill? I don't know. Just some of the skills, I guess, in the game felt a little unnecessary.
Yeah, like a lot of the speech skills I would never get. Things like...
Especially because there's so much gold
Yeah.
Towards the latter part of the game.
I mean, the gold perk within the speech skill is probably the only good one, and then you have to go through all these like really terrible ones to get it.
Yeah.
Right.
And there's a lot of like amulets and stuff that will sort of boost you past that.
Yeah.
Right.
In fact, you'll get to a certain where you're wearing an amulet, and you'll have this sort of false sense of value because it'll jack your ability up in speech so far that you know you're going to shops and you're getting like hundreds of gold for an axe, and you take it off for something else useful, and like this guy's offering you like 15 for the same thing, and like it's completely skewed your sense of like what you can get for things, and like so I always have like a bunch of jewelry on hand to switch out when I'm.
It's fine.
I do the same thing, but this is where it comes down to like we're thinking about Skyrim as like a bunch of mechanics and a game per se. But then what about the folks that want to role play? If I'm Tom McShay, who isn't joining us, but if I'm Tom McShay, I know he likes to do everything he can without combat. I know he's going to be leveling up that speech because that's what he wants to do, and that's where the fun comes from, right? So if I want to role play, I don't necessarily have to care about all this stuff. It's like when you get dialogue trees and you still essentially in a lot of RPGs still essentially get to the same place just in different ways. Okay, so maybe that didn't change the course of the game or change the story all that much, but damn it let me feel like I was still doing things the way I would want to do it or the way I would naturally do it myself. So that's the value.
We're going to carry on this conversation, but if you want to talk to us, you can call us via Skype or just your regular old phone. I have the numbers here. Via Skype, GameSpot, Hotspot, or your regular old boring phone, 415-644-5065. Give us a call. We will take your calls, assuming anybody actually calls. I don't know. Give us a call. We want to talk to you. We want to hear, tell us we're wrong, because I feel like the point we're kind of missing here is this game is totally rad. We really, really like this game. And I find that very interesting because it's like some of the things that I'm doing, like I have a tendency of when I'm in a dungeon, going into a dungeon room and there will just be baskets and books and who knows what. And I'm spending half an hour in this room and I don't know why.
Just going through everything?
Just going through everything because I need to. I want to.
So that's more your problem, Tom.
Every burial urn you're checking, right? If it doesn't say empty, you're checking it.
Exactly.
And 1 gold.
And I have to wonder, I'm like, is this a problem with me or the game? Like, is this compulsive behavior? I feel like they should have prevented me from hurting myself in this way. Is there too much to do in this game?
I don't know. Like, I mean, think about the Penny Arcade cartoon not too long ago. Showed like, one of the guys like gathering all these brooms. And being told, you don't have to get all these brooms. It's like, but you tell me that now, but I might go into the broom dungeon and I might then need all these brooms.
You might need to clean the hell out of that dungeon.
Yeah.
You know,
so
run out of a broom.
But I mean, that's a Bethesda thing, right? That nothing is really. I mean, there are limits, but most stuff isn't nailed down. You can pick up the plate and you can pick up the glass, and you may not need it, but hey, go and sell it to a vendor if you want. Go and drop it somewhere.
The thing I read that I really loved, that I think got the message across, was the guy on Rock Paper Shotgun who was so distraught at Lydia having died and him having not realized that he went back to give her a burial.
Oh, really?
And because she slipped down a mountain, and he pulled her back up and put her in a coffin and then took all her stuff. And as his wife walks in and wants to know why he's dragging a half-naked woman up a mountain in the game that he's been playing every night.
No, I can't remember. Was he a master conjurer? Because he did try to revive Lydia, and he was so distraught
right,
that she wouldn't get back up.
Yeah.
Zombie Lydia?
Yeah.
Well, he had zombie Lydia for brief periods, but it just wasn't the same. So.
That's fair. Yeah, the zombie Lydia is weird. We have nobody calling in yet. Come on, guys.
I think I missed a call.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, but I didn't see anything come up, and I don't think the speaker was on, so I didn't hear anything.
Right.
So, and then kind of getting
Call
back to
back.
that preponderance of things to do, like do you guys, like there's so many books in this game. Have you read any of them? Like I find myself
read a couple.
I can't get into them because I'm like, I got so many baskets to look through. I don't have time to look read this book.
Well, that's why you just collect them and take them back to your house and let them sit there for a while. You need to at least find the lusty Argonian maid, which is hidden everywhere.
Lusty Argonian maid?
Yeah.
Is it a good one?
It is about
a lusty Argonian maid.
Yeah, it's a cheesy romance novel about
awesome.
beast men.
I'm an Argonian.
Oh.
So that sounds great. What if there like some tail action going on there?
Yeah.
I can see that.
Okay, the big thing that this game introduced, shouts.
Oh.
Shouts I found very problematic.
Hey, we got a call. You want to take this call?
Let's take the call.
Okay, let's take a call.
All right, go for it, Tom.
Hello, you have reached the hotspot. Who are we talking to?
Hello?
Hello?
Totally can't
Hello?
hear you.
Oh.
Help us out, guys.
Hey.
We're gonna keep
Hang on
going.
if you're still there. We want to...
Nothing?
You there?
Benito,
Hello?
make it happen.
Well, this isn't going extremely... This isn't what we expected.
Oh, plug it in, Benito. There we go.
Okay, we got
something.
sound.
Hello? You have reached the hotspot. Boink, boink.
Hello?
Hey, how's it going?
Crap, I think I just hung up on one guy and
Oh,
answered
Jesus
the other.
Christ. This is
I'm
fun.
doing so good.
Hello, you've reached the hotspot.
Hello?
Hey, how's it going, buddy? We're talking about
Going all
Skyrim.
right?
Yeah, what, you have a question for us?
Sorry, let me switch my phone. It's hard to hear.
Oh, yeah, so we are, we're talking live, you're live on the hotspot. Do you have a question regarding Skyrim for us?
Well, it was more just the fact that I was talking about the glitches. And I've been fooled by glitches for the last 2 hours of this game.
Yeah. So, the glitching?
I went on the with the what's it called? The talking dog. You get in and I'll just on screen.
Oh, hey, buddy, can you mute your computer? That will help us out a lot. Oh, the stream on the computer.
He's watching the stream and it's feeding back and all that.
This is going delightfully well.
Excellent.
You cut that. Mute the streams.
So,
So whenever you answer the phone, tell him to mute the
okay. I don't know if you're still there, but if you're calling in, mute your stream, because that'll help us out a lot. Or something. So, we're going to go ahead and answer another live call, Kevin. Hopefully this one goes well. Hello, you've reached the hotspot. We are doing our live Skyrim Spoilercast. Who are we talking to?
Eric.
Hey, Eric, what's going on, buddy?
I was wondering if I can get some exposure on your YouTube channel. I've done some Skyrim stuff,
No, you can't!
walkthroughs and stuff like that.
Or just plug your YouTube channel and get off the phone. Go, quick. You have 5 seconds.
Okay, youtube.com/live.
All right, thanks.
Live on luck, huh?
We want to talk to Carlos. No, we're not going to talk to Carlos. Who are we talking to? You have reached the hotspot. Hello? Hello?
Hello.
Hey,
Hi.
you're talking to the hotspot. We're doing our live Skyrim Spoilercast. What do you want to ask us?
I don't know.
Okay. Quick question. Tell us about shouts. What do you think about shouts? I don't know. Never mind.
Let's move on to Carlos.
Okay,
Carlos might
yeah.
have something
Carlos,
to say. Carlos,
please,
we're glad
buddy,
you're
give
here.
me a good question. Nothing from Carlos.
Hey, Carlos, are you there?
All right, we got nothing
Yeah,
from
there's
Carlos.
definitely some static, at least.
We're gonna work on this whole live call thing until this happens. Let's get back to shouts. So this was kind of the thing that separates this Elder Scrolls from other Elder Scrolls. The thing I found about shouts was it was kind of like a third arm. Did you guys find that you were using them like consistently or well?
I only really used a couple.
Yeah.
I used Dragon Rend, which did not seem to work as advertised.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they're like, there's this shout that, has not been uttered since the dawn of time, and you have to go back in time. You have to find the one ever instance of an actual Elder Scroll in the Elder Scrolls in
Right.
order to go get this shout. where you basically eavesdrop on a bunch of dudes and you learn it, and it's supposed to like take out any dragon, and it doesn't. It's like sticky noise basically.
Yeah, it
right?
just grounds them, and there has to be a ground that they're willing to land on.
Yeah.
If you're on a giant mountain and the terrain is rough, they'll just keep flying.
Yeah.
So it didn't strike me as this all-powerful shout that was worth going through time for. So I used that, and I used Fusroda, particularly on the sort of zombie kind of things. It would be great. Like you'd get a couple of them, and I would actually try and get it so that I could push multiple off the edge of a cliff, and it was effective. But I hardly ever used the fire breath or any of the other stuff.
Yeah, I mean, the grounding shot's interesting because that brings up the whole point of fighting an airborne dragon if you don't have projectiles, handy.
Yeah.
Like, that was one of the things that I found kind of frustrating with, when I first started this game, I started off as like a melee character, and that first dragon, I would just see him flying around. I'm like, okay, land please, so I can hit you with my big axe.
Your little Nord arrows weren't cutting it.
Yeah, and I'm like, I can't be bothered to bust out my bow. And so that's what actually made me switch to a caster. But this concept of like, okay, you're up in the air now, I have to wait, or I have to like switch around, try to hit you. I don't know, I found that kind of annoying, slowing the pace a little bit. Am I the only one there?
Yeah.
It could be.
Yeah.
Did
you like fighting dragons?
No, the first dragon was interesting, but then after that it's like, there's a dragon everywhere. Yeah. I fast travel somewhere, I leave a building, there's going to be a dragon, and there's so many dragons at that point, it's just like, just go away, I don't want to fight you, I just want to go somewhere else.
Too many dragons.
Actually, it was a dragon fight. You were talking earlier on about the dialogue seeming very forced. Some of the ambient dialogue is not forced. And it's actually funnier. So there was a thing it was on the way to sort of learning about Alduin, and you were there was one of the spires that they congregate around, and I'd fought one dragon that had spotted me at this farm, and he had, for some reason, he was carrying just a bunch of stuff, because dragons carry lots of stuff. And I'd sort of gone through his stuff, and I gathered it, and then I realized I had to dump a lot of stuff out of my inventory, and I dumped it just in the farm on the field. And the woman who runs the farm was like, "Oh, I see. You just drop all your detritus all over my farm. You got," and she was just sort of nagging me the whole time. And it was the most natural piece of sort of witty dialogue that I encountered. And it wasn't direct. If you engaged her, she didn't talk. It was if you weren't looking at her, she would be sort of like just sort of in your ear about like dumping stuff all over her farm. And I think there was a lot of ambient dialogue in the game that I think you have to be just sort of listening out for, because I think that was some of the cleverest stuff.
Well, that was actually kind of interesting too, because it was one of the first things I noticed. That first town, Riverwood, Riverwood. The first town. If you follow the guy to Riverwood, he has this he goes into this conversation with his mom or the person he knows in Riverwood, and it seems like it happens regardless of whether you're there or not.
Right.
And that was actually, I thought, pretty interesting, because it gave me a sense that this is a world that is existing outside of my quest, and I found that very interesting.
I mean, a lot of those things are scripted, but they're very effective because they seem like they just happen to be happening when you walk in. Like you walk in and you have that guy that's in the process of being beheaded. I'm not talking about the very opening of the game, but the first time you go into the city where the Bard's College is.
Solitude.
Yeah. Thank you. In the Solitude, and then you see this beheading, and it feels like you've walked into something that's really important. And of course, it's a scripted event, but it ends up feeling a lot more natural than that, because your attention is not being forced. The camera's not pulled away from you. You're not like being whipped over there and forced to watch it. It's just going on. So there are moments like that I really appreciate in Skyrim.
Oh, God. We've been talking about Skyrim for a while.
Want to stop talking about Skyrim?
I don't know.
That's what we're here to talk about.
Yeah, I know. What else, you guys? What else has come out at you guys that you found interesting? Anything?
Well, going back to the shouts.
Anything
about Skyrim?
Give me something.
Anything is interesting in Skyrim.
Well, I kind of want. I want to know what you guys want to talk about.
Well, going back to the shouts, it's annoying when the enemy can use them, because if you make enemies with the storm cloaks, Ulfric, he can use Fosroda on you, and I came up with some annoying times when he would knock my weapon out of my hands. I'm fighting storm cloaks at the same time. I'm a melee character. If I don't have that weapon, I'm screwed.
Yeah.
So I'm just running around searching for where the heck my mace went.
I remember you telling me that story. It's like you'd get to the end of a dungeon and realize that your NPC had been disarmed.
Your followers can get disarmed. One of them had the Dawnbreaker, which is a really powerful Daedric artifact.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that they were missing it until the end, because they're also a spellcaster. So I'm like, oh, maybe you just took out your staff and want to use that.
Right.
And so I'm running around like this whole entire Dragon Priest dungeon, just looking around for this sword. Luckily, that one is at least kind of bright, so it just sticks out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I haven't actually gotten to that point yet, but I can imagine that would be incredibly annoying. I don't know. So the part of like exploration of this world, did you find that the part I really liked about that is the compass. I thought the compass was really, and I know they did this in old the old Oblivion games, but the part where you're able to see all of these different not environments, but points of interest around you. There's just so many. And what were some of the ones that you guys liked? Were there any that popped out?
Well, I love that they invite you in to go see. Early on, I mean, one of the first things I want to do when I played, I'm always an explorer in a game like this, as opposed to I'm going to follow what I'm supposed to do. I want to go off, and check things out for my own, and I want to see the environments, and I want to see what's interesting. And I came across this, this cave, and there's a dude standing out front. And he said, oh my God, will you help me? My loved ones are inside, they're dead. This is a tomb, but they're being resurrected by this evil mage, this evil necromancer. Will you go in and see what's going on and taking care of them? And I mean, I didn't have to come across this thing when I did. But suddenly, I mean, this is before I did almost anything with the story.
Yeah.
And then suddenly you're on this quest and you feel for this guy and you want to go in and you want to, let his, family members rest, and you have one of those, big Draugr guys at the very end that can take some work to take down, far more work than any of those dragons for the most part, to take some of those guys down.
That is interesting, because I know, especially in the beginning of the game, before I even started in on the quest lines, and I feel like this was actually a problem for me, at least getting into the game, but I was drawn to all of these points of interests, and so I would go in, I would complete the dungeon, and then later on, I would actually come across like that. Oh, I already got this for you. Here you go. It's all ready.
Or you have to go back and you've cleared it all out, but you didn't pick up what they wanted,
right.
And so then you have to go back and go through.
I picked up everything because I'm obsessive compulsive, having to clear every single basket of its contents.
But then, how awesome is it when you come across those surprises? And I think that's one of the biggest awesome things about Skyrim is that. There's always a surprise, and it's not, or a reward of some type, and it's not just, you go in there and you get gold or you get some awesome new weapon. It's not just stuff. It's this sense of accomplishment or this sense of discovery. For example, you go in and, for me, one of my favorite things was to go in and do something else, but at the very end, there were words of power to learn, at the end of the dungeon, and you see the writing, and you could potentially miss it if you don't see the writing, but you see it, you walk over, and then you have that visual rush when you suck it up, for I guess lack of a better way of describing it.
Yeah, I thought they did those words of power really well, because they are kind of hidden, some of them at least, and it's always this surprise and surprise when you actually come across them, like, because sometimes they are like you have to go underneath a bridge or not underneath the bridge, but you have to go down to a part of the dungeon that you don't necessarily have to go through to get to the end. And they're just like there waiting for you. And even, I like the way these dungeons are laid out, certainly better than Oblivion, because there's a lot more variety this time around.
It's not the same room over
It's not the same corridor crawl every single time. And to go back to that point of reward, like when you get to the end of the dungeon, they always have that nice, happy little treasure room that you get to plunder. I love plundering those.
And I also like how there's always a quick exit, and you
right,
have to backtrack through. It's like,
there was that door that was locked earlier on.
Right.
It's open now.
Well, I like the fact that all the stuff is there, the chests to open and whatnot. But it's not like in Assassin's Creed where you do one of the tombs or something and everything's bright and glowing and whatever.
Yeah.
It still feels like you're still making your own path. You're not doing it because the game says, well, this is what you click on next and this is what you click on next. I don't have to open that chest if I don't want to, and maybe it's got a master lock or something, and now I have to burn through 20 lockpicks before I can even get into it.
Oh, God, lockpicking. Yeah, I know. The thing about lockpicking for me is, like, I have to open the chests. Like, it's just not an option.
Yeah.
Like, I have to open them, and so I will spend all of my lockpicks, fail, reload the game.
Wow.
It's like this weird.
I lose patience.
No, you lose.
Yeah, when it says expert or master,
Yeah,
I'm
I
like,
just
I'm
avoid
gone.
it.
You're just like, you're out.
See, I do lock picking. Like that's where I'm putting a lot of like
Yeah.
whenever I have a perk where I finally
In
get up to that
Oblivion,
point.
there was an item that you
The skeleton key.
Yeah,
I think it's in
skeleton
this
key.
game as well.
And I just can't wait to find it because I just cannot be bothered with that.
Yeah.
It's like,
The skeleton key is actually kind of interesting because in this way, it kind of negates that entire talent tree.
Yeah.
Like the master level of the lockpicking talent tree is you basically, I forget exactly what it is, but I think it's either indestructible lockpicks or something along those lines. But
see,
if
I
you
don't, because if I had indestructible lockpicks, I think I'd still mess it
Oh,
up.
really?
I'd be doing it. I'm not a naturally patient person. and some of those master ones, you have to be super slow to pull it off.
Yeah.
And I just, like, you're going through and you're just sort of like wailing on stuff and beating stuff up. And it's like, wait, I've got to stop and I'm going to spend the next 2 minutes very carefully.
While the
taking
entire
this thing while the
world
world is
around
going
you
crazy
ceases to
behind me.
exist.
I like the feeling. Like I feel super rewarded when I do lockpicking. I mean, this is the same as Fallout 3's lockpicking, right?
Right.
It's not, and it's so much better than say Oblivion's lockpicking, which I just didn't like.
Right.
So I get that reward from the little bit of finesse. You know, so even if I had a master key or whatever, whatever. I'd still be using the
So
lockpick.
something I wanted to bring up was that I really appreciated that because I played a lot of Oblivion and it got a little kind of, there was some sameness to it.
Definitely.
I thought the diversity in like the cultures that you come across in this one, like I was genuinely like taken aback when I first ran into some of the dwarven stuff, like the robots.
Oh,
Like,
right. The little
the
worker
robot
spiders.
spiders, and then the big robot sentinel dudes that
Yeah.
start running around.
Yeah.
It was like it was clear that and the way that they were like seamlessly integrated into the culture of the overall game. Like it didn't seem jarring that suddenly I was in Robot Dungeon. Like it was justified in a way,
Right.
and you were in this place where they were clearly making these things, and they left the sort of mechanisms behind. I thought it was really well done. And then later on, when it slowly starts to introduce the Daedric stuff, and depending on where you are in the map, you get this clear sense that there is territory that was dominated by certain cultures, and I thought it did a much, much better job than any of the previous games.
I agree. Like the Dweemers have already been there, right? We've already known them. They don't exist. You meet one in the entire series, I think, but they don't exist anymore. And I think this game more than the others made it feel like something that's there and something that's just part of what's understood as part of everybody's culture. Like we know that the Dweemer are there, and now you see the remnants of that, and it's part of the experience as opposed to I read about it in a book, that I picked up somewhere.
Yeah.
I mean, what I really liked was not just the culture in Skyrim itself, but from all of Tamriel. Like, you'll get a lot of people from the Thalmor, which is the High Elves and the Forest Elves, and they have their own special wardrobes that really stick out against anything that the Nords are wearing. You have, like, the Wild Nords themselves, who are the Forsworn, and they're all about tribal culture. And also the Redguards from Hammerfell, who are always wearing like their signature robes, and they're from a desert wasteland.
Yeah.
Was it jarring at all when because you have the option to play through as most of these races?
Yep.
Was it jarring at all that your base stats are the same throughout? Like you have that one unique racial element, but everything else is just.
But there are some sort of racial interactions that make themselves evident. There are certain towns, so I was playing as a dark elf, and while there were some things where you would think being a dark elf would either be an advantage or a disadvantage, and it didn't. But there were some interactions with other people where I would walk into some places and there was some very clear, like, no, we're not going to deal with you, which it's not something that you expect of it. I think Dragon Age probably does it a little better in terms of the racial tension stuff, but it was tangible. I think a lot of people were like, it doesn't really matter, it's just a cosmetic choice. But there are some, like, their willingness to let you in or to talk to you, and like there's definitely some walking in and women and children scattering when you walk in as a dark elf.
It's a dark elf. He's going to eat my face.
Well, and it's interesting too. Like as an Argonian, I did this whole thing with the Dark Brotherhood where you have to disguise yourself as a chef, and I walked in and to the main chef, like I was disguised, and she's up as like, oh well, I wasn't expecting an Argonian. So there are those moments where, the game is throwing you a bone. And I realize, it's like, get the voice actor in and do the different,
Right, it's like, I didn't realize it was going to be a Redguard. I didn't realize it was going to be an orc.
But it feels good to go in and at least have the game acknowledge stuff like that. And it does get deeper, like you were saying, especially if you, because the Stormcloaks, Ulfric, you want to kind of love the idea of a freedom fighter, but on the same time, he is a racist pig.
Yeah.
And so, like, if I were a dark elf, there's no way I'm going to be doing anything for Ulfric. So this kind of stuff is at least woven in well enough that it does have some emotional significance.
What I liked in my own personal experience is I was an orc, and if for people who don't know like the lore of Tamriel, orcs don't even have their own country anymore. That they're like Uprising fell during like the Hammerfell or Daggerfall days, and they haven't had a home in a while. So once I found the very small orc encampment within Skyrim, they immediately welcomed me. And they're like,
really?
hey there, sister, because I am playing as a female. If you didn't realize from all the footage we have.
Such a weirdo, Curtis. A female orc.
I mean, if you're gonna play as an orc,
No, it's fair.
why not go as a female?
Embrace it. Anyway.
But yeah, they were really friendly to me. They, just opened their gates pretty much immediately without
Did you get anything? I mean, did they offer anything up, or was it just that they were very accommodating?
They were very accommodating. I think you would have to go through some sort of speech to convince them, or possibly pay them.
Okay.
But since you're an orc, they're like, hey, just come on in.
I did that. I had to go in. I forget. I think they might have sent me off to get them something. Like I had to do some kind of favor. Maybe speechcraft could have been involved. I don't know, but
it's kind of interesting because you would expect the exact opposite from the orcs, right? They should be the ones that are like
test of strength. Or
yeah,
something?
holding their like shield and or sword and just
They're
ready
very
to cut
noble
you.
in Tamriel.
Yeah, they're strong and powerful people or something. I don't know. I feel like we should start to wrap this up.
is it really time already?
I don't know. I have been brought a question by one of our producers. So the question is: do you find armory overpowered? If you're sneaking and have a reasonable armory skill, maybe it's archery. Yes, archery. You can one-shot almost anyone. Do you find that there's a balance issue in this game?
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, you could say that. I mean, I don't know if it's I'm not an archer, so I don't want to go and say that this is where I think there's a problem. I think there is. I think you could definitely come out and say, the game is easier for some people than others. And I think there's a case to be made for it. The game is just too easy.
Yeah.
In general. I mean, but I don't know. Like again, this is a world of what you make of it. So if you do a whole bunch of side stuff and then go into the story stuff and you're able to blow through it, I mean that's part of the nature of a game like this, right?
Yeah.
You're creating a world, and they didn't want to go the Oblivion route. I mean, a lot of people complain about the way Oblivion sort of scales to your level, so that. I think the intention there is just so that you always have a fair fight, but people like the idea that they could wander into some place and get their asses handed to them because they just happen to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. Yeah. So, I think that they erred on the proper side this time, which is that you could potentially blow through lots of things in this game, but by the same token, you could wander into a dungeon somewhere and find that you are in way over your head, which did happen to me a couple times.
Yeah, that's true. And I feel like one of the issues with this game, back to the archery, is combat is a little weird. Like, Elder Scrolls games have never been the best with combat. I find another reason why I switched away from the fighter class was I was just getting bored with the rawr, swinging my mace. Did you guys find that to be a problem? Or was it engaging for you, that kind of combat?
Not so much that. It kind of hit it for me then when you do the test going into Sovngarde, and there's the big topless dude with the hairy chest waiting for you, and he has one of everything, right? Or it seems that way, and he's shouting to you, and he's got a big axe, and he's like, I didn't like that kind of having to kind of circle around and jump over rocks to avoid him because he could take you out with one hit at that point. I didn't enjoy that, but I do I kind of took to archery later in the game.
Oh, really?
And I found this really cool, and it wasn't an orc bow, it was one of the levels above that. And because you get to a point where you have hundreds and hundreds of arrows.
Right.
And you can because you start off and they're a really limited resource, and you're pulling them out of corpses.
Right.
And then you get to a point where you've just got, I've got 200 Nord arrows and a bunch of glass ones and a bunch of the steel ones, and I'm just gonna because if you sneak and do archery at the same time, you're leveling up two skills at the same time, and you get these super powered sneak archery attacks where if you do a headshot into a guy kind of at a distance while sneaking, it's
game over.
Jacking lots of stats for you at the same time.
Oh, right.
So yeah, and I found that quite satisfying after a while.
Really? Yeah, I think my problem with a lot of the mage skills, especially though, is I feel like I'm not doing much damage, and maybe that's just because I haven't leveled them up high.
Do you also feel that they had very limited range?
Yeah,
I felt like particularly with the sparks that I thought I was like being a real badass and like doing my sort of.
You're pulling out.
I was doing my like
impression.
Emperor Palpatine two-handed spark attack and realizing that it was probably falling like 6 feet short of the guy that I was zapping.
Yeah.
But then that stuff, I mean, there are perks to increase the range.
That's true.
So that'll help, and of course you can dual cast stuff, and that'll improve like how much damage you're doing.
And I did like that dual casting thing, but the problem with that though is you have so many different spells. You have so many different spells that it's like that's a lot of real estate to be giving away. You know, like I want to have a different spell in each hand, and I feel like I'm kind of wasting it if I'm just. Both hands have the sparks or the lightning bolt or the firebolt.
That was a huge reason why I stopped using a shield after a while, is because I need this hand for a spell.
Yeah.
I have one for my weapon, I can't waste another really. And it's a pain in the ass to like switch them out, even if you have them hotkeyed.
Right. All right, guys. For real this time. We are cutting it off.
All right.
I thank you guys very much for joining me, Kurtis Seid. Thank you.
It was awesome.
Davison.
Thanks.
Kevin VanOrd.
Thank you.
Skyrim, we really like this game, and obviously, reading Kevin's review, we think that you guys will like this game too. Have fun with it. Write in with your stories. Hotspot at GameSpot.com if you have any stories that you want to share of Skyrim. I'll read them on next week's episode, which will be at our normal Wednesday time slot. But that does it for us. Thank you for tuning in, everyone. Hotspot out!